The clamor to hold industries accountable for the amount of carbon dioxide they pump into the atmosphere is not going away. In fact, it's getting louder. Across aviation, demands to take action are not falling on deaf ears.
I think a threat to this industry will be sustainability, and not because we are not because we're the cause of global warming, but we're the high culprit. We're the very visible culprit. And so the idea was, the direction was, how are we going to get ahead of this? So we went around the industry, we saw who knew things about where sustainability, we saw who are the knowledge makers in this industry. And then we wanted to do more. See, I think what we're doing in our industry now is we're not reaching hard enough. We're doing the minimum. You know, in Europe now you have to report your carbon footprints, and that'll come here too. We'll start to have to report. That will crucify us if that's all we do. What we need to do as an industry is we need to be out on a leadership role. We need to create the investment funds and our customers will gladly invest in this because they recognize preserving this.
AIN recently held a special forum to hear from some leading innovators who are making measurable progress in rolling out potential solutions, including the use of sustainable aviation fuel and carbon offsets. There's some complex but significant science behind the journey the industry is taking. If business aviation stays the course, it could very possibly end up being part of the solution rather than forever being perceived as the poster child for the problem.
So if you take a look at all worldwide man-made greenhouse gas emission, business aviation is 0.04% of carbon emission out there, which is a small amount. When you take a look at the economic output, the jobs, the emergency services, and everything that business aviation provides worldwide to communities that they serve. And so even despite the fact that we're only 0.04%, business aviation is committed to get to a lower amount and be a good steward. And in fact, through sustainable aviation fuel, we can reduce our Scope 1 emissions, which is, Scope 1 is the direct emissions that you do from the activity of flying, with the new pathways out there, to negative emissions. So what we're talking about in the life cycle greenhouse gas emission reduction is we're talking about plants that have been utilized. And those plants are obviously taking carbon out of the atmosphere, and then they are utilized, let's say in the case of sugar cane, the sugar cane is then harvested, so the carbon is accounted for, and a waste is produced. And the waste would normally be burned or be left out there to rot, which then produces greenhouse gas emissions. So we're taking the burning or the rotting of the plant matter or the plant waste out of the atmosphere and the system, so we get to account for that. And then we create in essence, a bio-crude out of that, which is then refined as sustainable aviation fuel, which is then put into our business jets. And through that whole life cycle production of it, we're talking about taking more carbon out of the atmosphere than putting in.
For now, at least, filling up jets with SAF may not be a viable option, but it isn't the only way to reduce the carbon footprint of business aircraft operations. A new company called 4Air, set up under Directional Aviation, is establishing a rating system to help aircraft owners and operators evaluate the various options and find out how best to fly in a greener way. Importantly, the system will allow operators the ability to prove that what they are doing is measurably more sustainable.
When you're looking at aircraft emissions, when you're looking at jet fuel and what it's burning and how it's creating carbon emissions and how to reduce that, you have some options in place. And some of those options include things like sustainable aviation fuel. But what we're learning right now is that sustainable aviation fuel is not readily available, the supply is low, and the price is high. So it's making it very difficult for corporate flight departments to engage with sustainable aviation fuel for direct reductions. There are some options out there right now, so that if you're on the East Coast, and we know there's a lot of supply on the West Coast, you can actually do a program that's called Book and Claim. You can pay for that attribute from the sustainable aviation fuel on the East Coast while it gets put in the wing of an aircraft on the West Coast. The important things there is to ensure that the documentation is clear and concise and gives you the information about feedstocks and blends so that you can calculate those emission reductions properly, so that you know how much you have saved by using sustainable aviation fuel. If And whatever you have left, or if you're not able to uplift sustainable aviation fuel, carbon offsets are a great option. Carbon offsets it's a way that you can fund projects elsewhere to reduce your emissions here. Carbon credits, it's an industry that has been around for more than 20 years. It's transparent, and every single project goes back to something on the ground. So whether it's a dairy farm in the Midwest, or renewable energy in Oklahoma, or in India, you are helping to fund those projects so that they reduce emissions elsewhere. Some of that transparency can be seen on the registries. A project is validated and verified before it even gets to the issuance. So what does that mean? It means that when a project wants to become a carbon credit, they'll go to the methodology, they'll look at it, they put the credit or the project through that methodology to ensure that it is a real project that will reduce emissions, has additionality, permanence, and can be retired on that registry. At that point, when you have one side of the equation is your carbon emissions. You look at your tailpipe emissions of jet fuel, and you can offset that equivalent amount, that CO2 equivalent, with one of those projects that may be a preferred project that has co-benefits that you like. And then you can go out and claim carbon neutrality.
For some companies, sustainability has become a way of life.
Yeah, we started down the sustainability journey for 3 core reasons. One, we want to be in compliance with future regulations that we believe are coming into the aviation industry. The second was to strengthen our leadership position. We feel that sustainability is core to who we are and who we want to be. And by pursuing new strategies in that realm, we felt that it would make us a better company. And the last thing is it's the right thing to do for today's generation and for our future generations. So the 4 key areas of our sustainability strategy focus around reducing our environmental impacts. Second is providing sustainable solutions for our customers. Third is communicating what we're doing with our local communities and engaging them. And fourth is to deliver consistent financial stability for our company, our employees, and their families. Sustainability encompasses 3 core areas for us. Environmental, of course, but also social and economic elements. An example of a social sustainability initiative is our scholarship programs that we've initiated with a number of local colleges and trade schools in the cities where we operate. And so we feel it's key that we focus on all 3 areas of sustainability in order to have the maximum impact for the future.
In fact, business aviation has been focused on sustainability for a long time. The industry has found that its collective efforts are proving to be a force multiplier across all sectors of aviation.
Back in 2009, the business aviation community came together, operators and manufacturers, and we established some very aspirational goals for our industry, both by 2020 and by 2050. Now, more than a decade later, we're on pace with all of those aspirational goals that we set. We've been able to find ways to have the industry grow, but have our environmental footprint reduced. Now there's recognition that as far and as fast as we're going, more can and needs to be done. And I think we have a couple key tools in that area, including sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, which has the ability to really reduce our environmental footprint. We're also looking at electric propulsion, hybrid propulsion, even hydrogen propulsion. And all of the manufacturers are doing a great job taking steps to reduce the footprint of their manufacturing process. The next challenge for us, I think, will be for flight departments. How do we work together to find out what the best practices are, bring those in, package them, and distribute them to our community? This is part of what we've been doing for years with safety practices, security practices. We go out and ask our network of experts to come together, help us know and recognize best practices, and then distribute them so that our community can adopt those.